Okay, so we're live.
מזמור שיר ליום השבוס. מזמור שיר ליום השבוס. שיר ליום השבוס. שיר ליום השבוס. The whole world is waiting.
And yes, we are live.
Yeah, well, I forgot that the intro plays on my. Well, anyway, it's been a strange day. Anyway, we were having a discussion, and Chris was asking questions, and we're like, I just woke up, my head hurts. Stop. No, so why? Chris, let's go back into it. I mean, we're still going to read and do the portion and all that. But let's go back into it. Why?
Well, our Torah portion covers a lot of things. For one, it's a double portion.
Right.
It is a double portion most years, but not every year. And this Torah portion starts out with talking about vows, and then it goes into a war with Midian. But instead of telling us about the war with Midian, it tells us how many people and who's going to go, and then it goes into a long, exhaustive explanation of the spoils of war, and then, oh my gosh, duh, you left the women alive. Are you kidding? They're the ones that caused the problems in the first place. Remind me, and we'll get into that again. And we have issues with that, but it doesn't tell us anything about this war with Midian. I mean, it really doesn't. The highlight is the war, but the story is nothing about the war. We win the war, and then we go off into who conquered who and who's who in the zoo. But even within that, there's one individual that, if I were a literalist and I didn't think about it, if I didn't dig in and ask the Torah questions, I'd say, here's another case where the Torah is crazy and stupid because it contradicts. If I flip over to Chronicles, I'm going to see this individual is not from the tribe of Manasseh. He's actually from the tribe of Judah, but in Numbers he says it's from the tribe of Manasseh. Somebody's wrong. And what's worse is Chronicles is one of those places. I mean, this is one of those instances where Yair says in Numbers that he's the son of the tribe of Manasseh and of Joseph. But when you go to Chronicles, it says Yair, who conquered these cities and named them after himself. It's almost quoting Numbers. He's of the tribe of Judah. How can he be both? Why is he both? Then we go into some other interesting things. And then Moses gives us this long, exhaustive, almost boring, you fall asleep. Like I was mentioning before, I'm getting up and going to get popcorn and go to the bathroom and asking Pam and the kids if they need anything to drink while I'm up. Let me know if something changes or if I missed anything when I get back. And I get back, and we went from here to there, and we went from there to there, and we went from there to here, and then from here to there. But during this long list of places that we stopped, and we can go into the numbers of what they mean, we can come up with a lot of ideas about certain things and what it represents, what it means. The names of these places are important. I get all that, and there's great and wonderful teachings out there. But I'm asking the question, while we're going through this long list of places, Moshe makes point to mention certain things only in 3 places. First place is, hey, over here, after Mara, we stopped, and there was, you remember this? There was 12 springs and 70 palm trees. And then we went from Elim to this and to that, and then we went from there to there, and then from there to there, and 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 there to there, there to there, and yeah, by the way, over here, that's where Aaron died, and this crazy dude, Arav, Canaanite, he heard that we were coming, and then we went from there to there, and there to there, and there to there, and there. So my question is, there's not one mention that over here was Sinai, and we stopped there and we got the Ten Commandments. Here's where the sin of the golden calf was. Here's where Amalek attacked us. Here's where I struck the rock and now I can't go in. Here's where Miriam died. Here's where the spy. All these other very important things that happen on the way, they're not mentioned at all during this long list. What makes these things, the Mara and where the 12 springs and 70 palms are, Aaron dying, and this individual hearing of us coming? What do those have in common? And I challenge you, it's not so much that Aaron died that's attributed to this place. It's not so much that there's 12 wells and 70 palms that's attributed to this place. And it's not so much that this individual heard that we were coming. It's the story behind it. It's kind of like when you're reading a book or you're studying for a test and you're going to highlight certain things or you're taking notes. You don't have time to take down everything the professor said, everything the teacher said. So you make a note because you remember that whole story, but that whole story has something to do with this other story. So you're just going to jot down El Paso. And then you're going to jot down Red River, New Mexico. And then you're going to jot down Enid, Oklahoma. And next to each one of those, you have a little thing. El Paso, ice cream. Red River, trout. Enid, breakfast burrito. I don't know. But what it's doing is triggering you to remember something happened at that location. What happened at these locations? It's not about Aaron's death as much as what did we learn about Aaron's death. It's not so much about the 12 springs and the 70 palms. What did we learn at that location? Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I'm trying to remember why it's all here, because I didn't have time to go back and look at those individual places. I was looking at what Torah is doing for us right now. And I remember, okay, well, yeah, they traveled to 42 places. By the answer, the way is 42. So they traveled here, they traveled there, and then we get, of all this stuff, we get the you save the women alive, kill the women and the young men, and then just keep the women who have not, known a man. And here's this and here's that, and all this other stuff about the battle that wasn't included the first time we heard it. All this is the fallout from the battle. That's at the end of the portion. It's not even the first part of the portion.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess what I'm trying to do here is to spurn us into asking questions, slow down, and sometimes we are more focused on the journey than the actual words. Frank, you and I and Jesse, we're of that crowd that believes there's not an accidental, misplaced word in all of Torah. Every word that's here is here in the order that it's in. It's spelled the way it's spelled on purpose. That whatever, every placement of every letter and every word is purposely placed this way for a reason. And so whenever I have that in my mind as I'm going through and I'm studying and I'm reading and I find these certain things that just jump out, why is Yura from Manasseh, but when I read in Chronicles, he's not? And what's so important about Gilead that we're even bringing it up? We focus a lot about Gilead. What happened there? What started this whole story off that now we're ending the story? And keep in mind, this Torah portion that we're reading, this double portion, this is the end. This is it. We go into the land. Tomorrow, we're going into the land. This is wrapping everything up. Now we're here. Let's cross into the land. All our fighting's done. Everything's done. Now we're going in, and our first stop is Jericho. Joshua, you ready? Got it. Cue the cloud. Stop the manna. this is it. So this is the end. Deuteronomy is nothing more than a swan. I shouldn't say nothing more. I don't mean it that way.
Yeah.
Deuteronomy is the swan song of Moses. Deuteronomy is Moses' account of everything from leaving Egypt to this point right here, right now. This is practicality, boots on the ground, into the story type of stuff.
If you don't mind me using this choice of wording, I can't help but jokingly think swan song is a bit much on the phrasing, maybe more along the lines of Deuteronomy is Moses' Talmud. It's while yes, it can be a swan song, it is also Moses' opinion of the journey.
Yeah, it's his own personal midrash. He's opining on everything else that was written down. This is the Torah. This is what goes by the ark or whatever.
Right.
This is the other Torah, Deuteronomy, that goes someplace else too.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't understand some of the times whenever, as we're going through Torah, God tells Moses to write this down and place it next to the ark or put it in a separate ark, a different box. Some of this just gets really confusing.
Right, but probably this is not the complete story because Moses has not died yet. They have not mourned for him because they'll mourn for him. It's more than 30 days. I think it's
Sure. So Moses dies tomorrow.
well, yeah. But
I mean, we finish up Numbers, and Moses dies tomorrow, and we're going to mourn for 30 days, and then we're going to go in. We mourn for 30 days for Aaron. My point is this is it. This is it. This is the end. We're done with our travels. We're done with everything. Now we're going into the land. Why mention only these things in the travel? So I pose to you this. It was in Marah, and the 12 wells and the 70 palms. In Marah is we just been saved. Glory, hallelujah! We've been saved and baptized in water and the Holy Spirit, and we're speaking in tongues and whatever Christians want to claim, whatever true salvation is to any religion. I shouldn't just point out Christian. I'm just saying whatever salvation is in any religion. What happened in Egypt and crossing the Red Sea and seeing the destruction of our enemies and going in and seeing God. That is salvation. God did this. He did it for us. He did it with us. We just went through salvation. But as we're on our way to the mountain, suddenly we realize that we're in the wilderness. Hey, Moshe, there's no wells. There's no water. We're going to die of thirst. Now, I know what I saw back there in Egypt, and I know what I saw at the Red Sea, but right now I'm really wondering, Moshe, there's no water. Is God really with us here in this wilderness? He might have been with us back there in Egypt, but is he here with us in the wilderness as we're going through the most painful, most terrifying times that we've ever faced? Is God with us? That's the question that they asked at Marah and at the wells and the palms. At the wells and the palms, God gives us manna because we're also kind of concerned about food too. So God provides water and food in a place where there is no such thing as water and food, and God is saying, yes, I am with you. I will always be with you. But what our story here in Bamidbar does not mention, and I find it striking and odd, it doesn't say anything about the giving of the Torah. It doesn't say anything about the sin of the golden calf. Remember the sin of the golden calf? Yeah, I remember that. That's when we gave up on God and we started our own religion. No. We didn't give up on God. We didn't start a new religion. There was no golden calf cult that was created here. No, the exact words are, this man Moses, we don't know what's happened to him. But since we're relying on Moses to be the intercessor between us and God, and now that Moses is gone, we need another intercessor. And we befall that calamity. But that calamity also builds up Moses and Aaron. And then we have this fight of who is going to be a priest and who's going to be the high priest. And we've got the whole Korah rebellion and the things that goes on there. Who can be a high priest? After all, Korah says, we are all a nation of priests, aren't we? Isn't that exactly what God said? Isn't that exactly what a certain religion says today? That I'm a royal priesthood? Yeah, well, I warn you, don't try to go into the Holy of Holies because you're going to get zapped. Don't do it. But so we're still being built up that I've got to go through Aaron to have this connection with God. And Aaron dies. And if you go back to that portion where Aaron dies, the Torah is painfully clear. Moses took Aaron up to the mountain, and everybody saw Aaron die. Aaron's just a man too. He is not a demigod. And how do we start this journey out? Hey, Moshe, you guys are going to do this, and then you're going to be gathered to your people. You're going to die. So I pose to you that these things that are mentioned in the story of we stopped here to there and there to there and there to there, there's other things behind it which are great and wonderful and marvelous. But I think by bringing out these specific highlights is to remind us that there is no person or thing that comes between you and God. God desires a personal relationship, one-on-one, with you and the entire family, the entire house of Israel, all of the descendants. You are one as an individual and one as a nation. And the only way you can be one as an individual is if you're one as a nation. And that is what I see as the constant reminder as we go through stop after stop after stop, and why Moshe reminds us, you asked, is God with me? He proves throughout all of these camps that yes, he is with you. And then you started to rely on Aaron and Moshe as an in-between. I don't have to worry about it. I'm just going to lay that burden on Moshe and Aaron. No, you can't do that. They have a place, but you have a responsibility. And this is why now the nations are going to see your protection has been taken away. Maybe now is our opportunity, and we see Arad hears about Israel coming. And Frank, you brought it up in the pre-show that maybe what he heard was that Aaron died, their protection is removed. Let's prepare ourselves so we can beat this nation.
Right.
Or maybe it's just like what God had promised, is that they're going to hear about you and their hearts are going to melt within them. The closer you get, the more afraid they're going to get. And their whole society is going to break down.
Yep.
Have no fear, I am with you. So that's how I take it. And that was kind of the point that I was getting to, is why is this even brought up here and there?
Well, to add to it, it kind of, with the way you word it, it kind of brings a slight amount of puzzlement to the mix, because I can't help but wonder, we've been running with the theme, at least before the show started, that there's a connection between all of these sections in this Torah portion. What do they have to do with each other? What is in common with them? So it brings to mind the whole question, how would that be taken if God is trying to say you don't need an intercessor, but if a woman makes a vow and the husband or the father hears about it, the vow can be canceled if the father says no.
But if he holds his peace, then that vow is affirmed.
Yes. I'm trying to figure out how would this tie in with what we just explained there.
And don't fall into the trap of Western thinking. The Western or Greek mindset is there's absolutes. This is the only way you can interpret this, and there's no other way to interpret it. So whenever I say there's no intercessor, and then you bring up something like, well, wait a minute, a man can intercede and stop a vow of his wife and stop the vow of his daughter. Oddly enough, there's no word here about the vow of his son, but
no, not whatsoever.
So there's a huge silence that almost echoes there with that one. But how does not needing an intercessor apply here? And I'm going to tell you is that the two are not the the two do not have a direct correlation.
I
There
think they do.
is a hierarchy and a purpose for things, but when it comes to the intercessor, and you don't need an intercessor to connect with God, and a person in a place of position can nullify or acquiesce to the vow of another individual, those two things are not equated, because Aaron can't nullify my vow. So don't make the correlation of an intercessor and someone that can condone or condemn your vow.
Hence why I was very determined to pose the question in the fashion of, so what is related? What, maybe not necessarily a correlation, but what are the similarities to these two bits is what I was trying to get at. How to, since they're all in the same Torah portion, it's the question of what is similar to these two situations. What is it about this and that make God and Moses say these two should go in the same Torah portion that we're discussing?
Well, I have a suggestion. The fact that the Most High, blessed be He, looks at us as His bride, or daughters, shall we say, is the retelling of the oaths, is that a, symbology between God and us, because we are not on God's level. We're down here a little bit. We're His children, daughters, etc. So if the daughter makes a vow and God says nothing, then that vow stands. But if the daughter makes a vow and God hears it and says, no, you shall not, that vow does not stand. A divorcee or a widower who's separated, more or less, makes their own vow, they stand by their own words. So is that relationship kind of like what's being told here? Between us and God, that is. Did I not?
And
Did I
see,
make that clear?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And sometimes I think we have to be very, very careful when taking rules that apply to human interaction and applying it to human and divine interaction. I think there is probably a premise and a proof case for coming from the divine and human interaction that is applicable to the human and human interaction. In other words, the the target or the acting word that we're dealing with in the human to human interaction here is the word vow.
Yeah.
And so we've got to go back and understand what is a vow, neder, and what is a shavua, which is the word for oath. And isn't that interesting that it has the same root as the word for seven? Hence we get Shabbat, Shavuot,
Right.
the things of sevens. But an oath has the same root as seven, but neder is something a little bit different. Neder is a vow that, from a Jewish mindset and the Jewish thinking, based on Torah, is I make a vow, then I am writing Torah. I am binding heaven and earth to my words. So when I make a vow, even though, let's go to the Masorite, the Masoretic, or not Masorite, the
Nazarite vow?
Nazir.
the Nazarite, yeah, the Nazarite
Yes.
vow. A
We
Nazarite
used to call
vow,
it the Nazir.
yeah, the Nazir. The Nazir makes a vow. He's vowing that he will not, he's vowing that he's going to abstain from something. And the Torah gives us something very specific: grapes. Is there anything sinful, wrong, evil, or terrible about grapes? None whatsoever.
No.
In fact, you're commanded to have wine with Passover. I mean, wine is a good thing. Grapes are a good thing. There's absolutely nothing wrong. Grapes are not forbidden. But you, by your word, can forbid grapes. And if by your word, you forbid grapes for a period of time. If you were to partake of grapes during that time, it is now a sin for you.
Right.
You can forbid. I
Chocolate
will.
malts.
Yeah, I will not have chocolate malts for 30 days. You are my witnesses. And again, according to Jewish law, you have to have witnesses. You have to make this proclamation. It has to be for a period of time, etc. There's things about how to make a vow. So you make this vow, but there's also something else. You can vow something to God, and we see this with Jephthah in Judges chapter 11, I believe, where Jephthah he's a judge, and the people come to him and say, "How come you're not going to go out and fight with us?" And he's uncertain about doing this. He's just an old farmer himself. Okay, I'll do it. And he goes off and he prays to God, and he says, "God, if you lead me out and I'm successful with my enemies, and you bring me back to my home, then I will sacrifice the first thing that comes out of my house to you." And it's I'll make a whole offering to you of the first thing that comes out of my house. Now, seriously, what was this guy thinking? Did he really think that the first thing that's going to come out of his house is a goat, a lamb, an ox? What was he thinking that's going to come out of his house? Well, maybe he meant, houses in the Middle East, whether it be Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, all these other places. They have in Afghanistan it's called a kulat, and it's a walled area where a related family lives. So it'd be mom and dad in this area, and then the son with his wife in another area, but the whole area is walled in, and they all live in there. So maybe that's what it was. Is the first thing that comes out of this walled area, and within this area, you're going to have all your animals and such. So the first thing that comes out, but again, why would you not think that the first thing that's going to come out is someone in your family to greet you, seeing you coming home? Why would you not think that? And his daughter comes out, and they both embrace, and they both start crying whenever they realize he vowed her to God. But there's no implication here that he vowed to kill her.
True.
That's not it.
It just means she's
dedicated
Right.
for life to God, which means she cannot have the quote normal relationship. She is completely, from this point on, holy and separated to God. A very stringent life. Very stringent life. She, in all aspects, becomes a Nazir for life. And we've seen a couple of these. Samson.
So does that mean she becomes,
Samuel?
for lack of a better term, a nun?
In an aspect, Judaism obviously doesn't have such a thing, but
right. But I mean,
in an aspect, she's totally dedicated to God, just as Samson was, or Samuel was, or some of these others. So we're seeing that by the power of my words, I speak life into something that wasn't there before. We are now entering into, with the power of a vow, of entering into a godly realm of God spoke life into the world, into the sea, and it brought forth fishes, into the sky, and it brought forth birds. He spoke life into the earth, and it brought forth plants and animals. We're entering into that when we make a vow. And this is why it's so serious. What's interesting is throughout all of the prophets, it's no less than 10 times where God says, in that day, and he's speaking of the day after the great tribulation is going to come across the whole earth, and we have this messianic reign. In that day, you will keep your vows. But over in the apostolic writings, it says that don't make a vow. Are we misunderstanding something that's happening over here with what Jesus says and what Moses and God is saying over here? Is a vow a bad thing?
No, a vow's not a bad thing. It's a strict thing.
So, Jesse asked, what do vows have in common with everything else that's going on here? And we mentioned this strange individual that is of the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Manasseh. And you'd have to go to Chronicles chapter 2 to figure that one out. Basically, his grandfather married a woman from the tribe of Manasseh. But now think about that, because in Judaism, your tribal affiliation goes through your father. Your national affiliation goes through your mother. But here in Numbers, he is being accounted with the tribe of Manasseh.
If you don't mind me jumping in, that's why in modern Judaism they say you are Jewish through the blood of your mother, while through the blood of your father it is determined your lineage, if you will.
Yeah, which tribe you're associated with. So, is there a connection with making a vow, since it's brought up in this Torah portion, and with this war with Midian, and this individual that seems to be of both Judah and Manasseh? And remember, who's Manasseh? Manasseh was the firstborn of Joseph. So we have the whole Joseph and Judah story coming back again. Interesting. Where does it come back? What's the location? In Gilead. What is so significant about Gilead, Jesse?
Well, if I remember correctly, we had an incident in Gilead, or Gil. I'll
Yeah, in
pronounce it
Hebrew
later.
you probably pronounce it Gilad.
Gilad, which we had a moment where Jacob fled Laban, and then Laban finally caught up with Jacob and demanded that someone had stolen their idols. I'm going to say their idols because there is a word of it in Hebrew, and it's just something of rather important value to Laban.
Yeah,
And
hey, you stole my Trophim. And what is
Trophim?
Trophim?
There we go, Trophim.
Trophim is a plural word. You stole something that's important to me, really, is what it's trying to portray.
Yes.
But it's usually translated as idols or
As
something
idols.
that he worships. So and where he catches up with Jacob is at,
Gilad.
but it's not called Gilad there, or Gilead.
That time, it's only mentioned that it's actually called that after the vow between Jacob and Laban was made as to whoever stole this will die. And then from this point, there is a separation of Jacob and Laban saying, since you did not find it, we go our separate ways in peace.
That's an Ebenezer, right?
And what did they do?
What
did Jacob do to signify that this is my place over here and this is your place over there, and we agree we will never approach each other for war? But the point,
a pile of stones.
Makes a pile of stones, and a pile of stones.
That's an Ebenezer, right?
A what?
An Ebenezer.
Not quite, but a pile of stones is called a gal. It'd be either a gil or a gal. And he says this pile of stones, this piling up of stones, this gal, is going to be a witness, an aid between you and I. And when you put the two together to name the spot, it's going to be Gilad or Gilead. So the name where Jacob said that this is our boundary between you and I. But what Jesse's talking about is, before that, Jacob made a vow. Whoever took the Trophim, that individual will die.
Yep.
And what happened? That individual died an untimely death. Rachel dies giving birth to Benjamin. Do you know that story well enough to continue on as all the different things that are correlated there that tie into why Gilead is our stepping off point? Why Gilead really is so important to be, this is the end of our story. We started here and now we're ending here. Now we can go back into the land.
Well, considering that the story of Gilead is very reminiscent to the story of the selling of Joseph, or at least the story of Joseph and Judah as a whole. And I'm punching that out there now before we go into depth, just so that everyone knows where I'm coming from. Because there is as the way the story is portrayed, Laban pursues Jacob and his family in a rather similar fashion. And see, now here's where I'm starting to stumble over my words. Jacob pursues.
Use your words.
Yes, I know. Laban pursues Jacob and then demands.
He froze up.
Am I still frozen?
Yeah, you're still frozen. So Laban chases after Jacob, catches up with him, and he says, "I want my idols back." You know, for one, he starts off the whole Labanite way. You know, Laban is crazy. Oh, had I've known you were leaving, we'd have thrown a party. There'd have been dancing and singing. I'd have hired Led Zeppelin to come over and play. You know, what? You didn't even let me hug and kiss my kids. I mean, I'm so concerned about my kids. And besides that, you stole my idols. Where are my idols? And now we get to the point why you're here. You're ticked off that someone took your idols or your trophim, whatever this word trophim means, and Jacob has lost it at this point in time. Says, you know what? You go look through here, and whoever took your idols, that person's a dead person, dead, because this has nothing to do with brothers now. And he uses that word, brothers. Laban goes through. And whenever he comes to Rachel's tent, what's Rachel doing? She took the idols and she put them into a pillow, or a better word is a saddle for a camel. It's a camel's saddle, but it's a pillow that you would sit on the camel, or it's a pack that you would, kind of like a saddle bag that's used on camels. Either way, she's sitting on this, and the trophim are inside here. Jesse, look up those words in Hebrew. The word that's used for the saddle bag, it's very interesting because it's got the same root as another word that's going to become very important. She's sitting on this. Laban comes in. And she says, "Oh, excuse me, Father, I'm in the way of a woman." And the implication is, if I were to stand up, all you'd see is bloody rags. And so let's not go there, and let's not do this. I'm not trying to be gross or anything like that with it. And so he leaves and comes back, and now he's going to get dressed down by Jacob. Jacob tells Laban, 20 years I labored for you, changed my wages. Anything that was stolen from me, I had to pay back to you. Anything that was killed by an animal, I had to pay back to you. My life has been sheer hell under you, Laban, and now you come up here and you're going to accuse me of anything. This is it. We're done. We have no relations here. This is it. Anytime you cross this place, it's considered war. Anytime I cross this place, it's considered war. This is where I begin a new beginning with my family, and your family ends at this place. Let's sit down and, as brothers, have bread. And I'm going to stack up these rocks. And these rocks will be a witness. And hence it's Gilead. And then Jacob goes in. Rachel dies, giving birth with Benjamin. And suddenly the rabbis tell us, see, Jacob gave a vow in haste. And his hasty vow, this ties us back to our Torah portion now, is what causes Rachel's untimely death. And Joseph goes off. And what happens with Joseph? Seems pretty decent, but then suddenly he comes down. He's going to find his brothers. And when he finds his brothers, we all know the story. They throw him into a well, and they sit down, and as brothers, they break bread. Coincidence?
Not a kosher way.
But what do they do with Jacob? They bring back bloody rags. And just like Jacob's words, search through and see if you find what you're looking for. Are these items yours? They present it to Jacob now in the same way Jacob spoke to Laban. Are these bloody rags yours? And what does Jacob says? He says,
"They are my firstborn."
He says, "Truff. Torn apart is Joseph. Truff.
Teraphim, if you pluralize it.
If you pluralize it, it's
It's
teraphim.
spelled slightly
Yeah, it's a
different,
little bit
but
slightly
but
different,
the pronunciation is the same.
but it's uncanny the coincidence of these things. Now, when they sell Jacob, and when they sell Joseph, when the brothers sell Joseph, they sell Joseph to people traveling from where? Does anybody recall that one in the story? Sells them to Ishmaelites. At first I thought they were Midianites, but they're actually Ishmaelites. Ishmaelites coming from, and our story is specific, Ishmaelites traveling from Gilead. Wow. Coincidence? Again? All these coincidences. And what do they put Joseph on? A camel. What is the word for that sack or that saddle or that pillow?
Bachar.
Bechar. The exact same root word, the same spelling for Bechor. What is a
Which is,
Bechor?
Hor is the firstborn.
Firstborn. Again, a coincidence? These coincidences. Oh wow, this is just crazy how the Torah is full of coincidences. And then when we get into Egypt, while Joseph is down in Egypt, we have this side story about Judah, and then Judah now becomes a very important role, and Judah now pays the price for Benjamin so that Rachel will not be left without a name, that Rachel won't fully die. Judah puts himself into that place. Everybody thinks Joseph is gone. You can't let Benjamin go too, because that is the complete fulfillment of Jacob declaring the death on whoever took it. Work with me here for a minute. And now we have Judah coming together, and then we have Joseph's two children, Manasseh and Ephraim. Manasseh is the firstborn, and we have the replacement thing with Jacob and Manasseh and Ephraim. And now we come forward, and we're at the end of the story, and we see that Judah and Joseph have combined as a family through Manasseh the firstborn. And where do they combine? Where do we first hear about it? Here at Gilad. Our problems all started with a vow made in haste at Gilad that's made the separation and the boundary of my people and everybody else. And here we've come full circle right back to that exact same place. The vow has been nullified through the actions of the sons, and that's fascinating in itself. Nullified, corrected, however you want to view it, through the sons and the sons of the sons. This vow has come to fruition and negation through their actions of acting as a family and coming together in love and caring for each other and caring about each other. And it happens here at Gilad. And now Joseph and Judah have come together at Gilad, which is our kicking off point of going into the land.
Okay. So.
What do you mean so? I just talked for an hour.
No, so we still have to read the part of the portion. So what's a good...
I'm sorry, but we should have hit that like
I understand
50 minutes ago.
I understand that. We still need to do that, though.
Okay.
Well, I've got it set. Go ahead.
So I've done all the talking, and I still have a little bit of wine left in my glass. So here, so
no, I mean,
you guys pick a portion, say the blessing, we'll read, and then we'll discuss some more because that's all I'm about.
Add that to the fact of the portion that I chose to read is going to fit in nicely.
So what are we reading, or what are you reading?
Well, I'm doing the third Aliyah, which is Numbers chapter 32, verse 1, all the way to verse 19, which should give us a nice swinging range.
Okay, all right. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bakar banu mikol ha'amim bitan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah el melech ne'eman.
Amen. 2 seconds. There it is. Nope, not that one. That. Numbers chapter 32, verse 1 through 19, the third Aliyah, read from Chabad.org's translation. The descendants of Reuben and Gad had an abundance of livestock, very numerous, and they saw the land of Jazir and the land of Gilead, and behold, the place was a place for livestock. The descendants of Gad and the descendants of Reuben came, and they spoke to Moses and to Eleazar the Cohen and to the princes of the community, saying, Ataroth, Dibon, Yazir, Nimrah, Heshbon, Eliah, Seban, Nebo, and Beon, the land that the Lord struck down before the congregation of Israel is a land for livestock, and your servants have livestock. They said, If it pleases you, let this land be given to your servants as a heritage. Do not take us across the Jordan. Thereupon Moses said to the descendants of Gad and the descendants of Reuben, Shall your brethren go to war while you stay here? Why do you discourage the children of Israel from crossing over to the land which the Lord has given them? This is what your fathers did when I sent them from Kadesh Barnea to explore the land. They went up to the valley of Eshcol and saw the land, and they discouraged the children of Israel from crossing into the land which the Lord has given them. The anger of the Lord flared on that day, and he swore, saying, None of the men from age 20 years and over who came out of Egypt will see the land that I swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, for they did not follow me wholeheartedly, except for Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, and Joshua, the son of Nun, for they followed the Lord wholeheartedly. The anger of the Lord flared against Israel, and he made them wander in the desert for 40 years until the entire generation who had done evil in the eyes of the Lord had died out. And behold, you have now risen in place of your fathers as a society of sinful people to add to the wrathful anger of the Lord against Israel. If you turn away from following him, he will leave you in the desert again, and you will destroy this entire people. They approached him and said, We will build sheepfolds for our livestock here, and cities for our children. We will then arm ourselves quickly and go before the children of Israel until we have brought them to their place. Our children will reside in the fortified cities on account of the inhabitants of the land. We shall not return to our homes until each of the children of Israel have taken possession of his inheritance. For we will not inherit with them on the other side of the Jordan and beyond, because our inheritance has come to us on the east bank of the Jordan.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah imet b'kayei olam notah b'chukenu. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah. El melech Naaman. So, Chris, along with what you said, doesn't this seem to be, it's not completely, but doesn't it seem to be another separation because they're staying on this side, Jordan? They're going the other. Now, but they make the vow, we'll go across and fight. So
I would probably add just a little bit more to that, considering while I only read the Aliyah, there is more to the aspect if you were to read on further, where Moses makes the deal saying, Fine, we can do this. Bear in mind, if you do not hold your end of the bargain, you will
inherit on this side.
If you do not hold up to your end of the bargain, you are considered sinful against God. Also, I am going to include on this side of the land part of the tribe of Manasseh to still. It doesn't say it in the Torah, but I would most definitely be inclined to say Manasseh is going to inherit, at least a portion of Manasseh is going to inherit this side of the land alongside you to make sure that there is a proper union. This river is not going to divide our people. The this section of Manasseh is going to verify that you are still with us.
Yeah, Manasseh is going to be the bridge.
Exactly.
Manasseh will be the bridge. So Frank, in this, I know you're kind of teasing us into it, but that truly is a way
What?
that. Yeah, I know. A way a lot of people read this is, oh no, those silly Jews, they're settling short again. But that's not what they were doing. They really weren't. They're not settling short. They're not refusing to go into the land. Even though Moshe, I mean, he's ticked off. He's
Oh,
upset. I mean, these are pretty ugly words. He's saying you're sinning worse than your father sinned. Hey, don't you remember the spies and that whole thing? And that you're going to cause you're going to lead the people into sin. And like Jesse said, if you notice, this is just two tribes. This is just Gad and Reuben. And we don't find out until later that Manasseh has anything to do with this. And you got to ask the question: who brought Manasseh into it? And so, but the fun thing is, Gad and Reuben, the Torah says they closed the gap. They approached Moshe. Moshe makes an accusation against them, and they're almost taken aback by it. I mean, you can almost see this. Hey, you know what, Moshe? This is perfect place for us. Look at how much livestock we have, and this actually is within the greater boundaries of what was promised to Abraham.
yep.
So this isn't really outside of the land, and this is what was talked about previously in other Torah portions. That this is the eyes of the land. That this is the precursor of going into the land. We're going to take our inheritance here if it's all right with you. And Moshe blasts out at him. I mean, ugly. And so instead of charging back, said, "Wait a minute, we just fought for this." And making a case as to why they should have it.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of being defensive, they approached him. Whoa, no, hold on. No, it's not like that at all. In fact, to prove that it's not like that, Moshe, we're going to go in and we're going to lead the warfare. We're going to be in front of everybody else. We're going to be out in front and making the charge first and breaching the gap so that all of the tribes can come in behind us.
Mm-hmm.
And once everything is done, and you know how long this took, Jesse, Frank?
It's about 12 years, wasn't it? Or 18?
7 years at least. We
Okay.
don't know this until we get to Joshua. And there's a funny thing that happens in Joshua. Gosh, that's why we really don't need to stop with Torah. Read Joshua to find out how these things played out.
Pardon me 1 second. Hazak, Vinet, Hazek. Be strong, and be strengthened. Right.
I will say that to add to that, perhaps maybe in the future we should forego reading the Torah portion for a year and cover Joshua, maybe at least part of the year, and then jump back into the Torah.
It might be fun to go through a study, but this is one of those places where if we jump to Joshua, we can see more of the story. It's almost the Paul Harvey thing. After 7 years of fighting out front, and remember, their wives and their children are back on the other side of the Jordan.
And by children, you got to understand, under 20 years of age. So there's still some young men there, but they're under 20.
Sure. So they're going from the north to the south. They're conquering this whole area, and they're the vanguard for Israel as they go through conquering. Then at the very end, they said, "All right, we're done. Everybody's got their place," and they tell Joshua, "We're going back to our people." And as they go back, they get this crazy idea to build an altar right there on the banks of the Jordan. And the rest of Israel hears about this. And once again, just like Moses, they're kind of ticked off. What are you doing building an altar there? You build an altar only where God places his name. He didn't place his name there. You're going back into pagan idolatry again. Don't do this. And they're waging war. They gather at Shiloh. Shiloh is the place to gather for war. They gather at Shiloh, and guess who goes out with the protocol party, the ambassadors for all of Israel? Guess who leads that one? You're right, Frank. It was Pincus. Pincus leads it, goes back, says, "Whoa, whoa, 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 hold on." Instead of accusing them, he does this. He kind of led them on to, you know what, this kind of looks like you guys are going into idolatry. What's happening? And they explained to him, no, we're concerned that because this river is here, and even though Manasseh is our bridge, we're concerned that our children and your children won't remember this. And so we are building up
Another
a,
neighbor.
a witness between us. This is not an altar for sacrifice.
This is another Gal Ed.
So that whenever we come back across this river, when we come across the bridge of Manasseh and go to worship Hashem, least your children say, God has divided us by this river and you're no longer welcome here. This is our witness that no, we were the vanguard. So why Manasseh? Why was Manasseh chosen? I don't know. I really, truly don't know. Other than, isn't it interesting the Torah takes time to point out the people of Manasseh and the cities that they conquered on that side? It's almost as if Manasseh was the vanguard for Gad and Reuben, and now Gad and Reuben is going to be the vanguard for all of Israel.
In a sense, it also adds to the whole subject of Manasseh doing the conquering of Gilead, because we still were trying to cover that a little bit more, because we mentioned that now I suddenly went blank on his name.
Jezreel?
No. The name of the one who Jair. There we go. Jair. He was the one. He was in Numbers. It says he is of the tribe of Manasseh, but in Chronicles, as you said, it says that he is the tribe of Judah, which is a weird twist because we never really went into that subject. What's the whole big premise on that one? And I'm thinking the main reason why Manasseh was chosen is because of that whole aspect that Yair was part of the conflict. Hence, as you said, that Manasseh was the vanguard for Gad and Reuben. It does feel of a similar nature, especially when we look into the Torah portion, when we are looking at the involvement of Gad and Reuben wanting to settle outside of the land. There is that whole feeling, that whole tie-in back to Joseph in a sense. So I could actually see what you're talking about in a roundabout way, because the way Reuben and Gad present their argument with Moses is very similar to the way that Judah presented his argument to Joseph for the life of Benjamin. In a similar light, the whole aspect of no, you don't get him. I'm responsible for him. I'm responsible for my brother, or in Reuben and Gad's situations, brothers. So take me instead. I will be the vanguard. And since it was spoken to Joseph, I could easily see that Joseph's two tribes, especially Manasseh, the firstborn, is recognized as you're the witness, will be the link, in a sense. Now, that's kind of a reach based on the other studies I've done, but that is what I'm seeing in the whole tying aspect of Reuben and Gad getting their portion outside of the land, and Manasseh still being the one tied into it all. And that's just an opinion on my part, based on everything that I've learned today.
It's good, because if you think about it, remember, who was the firstborn?
The firstborn of Joseph was Manasseh. The firstborn of Israel is Reuben.
Yeah. So he does something, and now he is no longer considered firstborn, and we're going to see that Manasseh Manasseh and Ephraim, but Judah takes on the role of leadership and takes on the responsibility of firstborn. Manasseh is a firstborn of the blessing, and we see this whole thing. But what's interesting is it's almost as if the tribe of Reuben is coming back full circle as well and taking responsibilities of a firstborn. And just like Judah did to redeem himself by taking responsibility for Benjamin, Reuben is taking responsibility for all the 12 tribes. And so we see here at Gilead, everything comes full circle. The tribes are learning that, yes, we are responsible for each other and we will fight for each other, but yet we are individuals. We're individual tribes, we're individual people. And we see this being played out throughout all of it. And isn't it interesting that Joseph is still and has always been right in the middle? Because it's in this Torah portion. Where was it? Let me see if I can find it real quick. In chapter chapter 32, verse 33, it says, Moses gave the descendants of Gad to the descendants of Reuben and the half tribe of Manasseh, the son of Joseph. So it's striking. We already know who Manasseh is. Why do you have to put it here and remind us that Manasseh is the son of Joseph when we're talking about Gad and Reuben and talking about Gilead? Oh, it's that whole family story. Who's firstborn? What is the role of a firstborn? Who is responsible for who? Why the contention between Joseph and Judah constantly? And here it's almost as if that contention, that gap, is fully healed because we're now in the third and fourth generation from those two individuals, if not even more so. And we're seeing that now Reuben is standing up, Gad is standing up. We're all taking on that responsibility for each other, just as Judah did for Benjamin, because of what Judah did whenever he sold Joseph and sat down and ate bread with his brothers, just like Jacob did here at Gilead. This is the dividing point. The family was broken and shattered and divided. Now the family has come back together whole. It's the sons are making restitution. The sons are making the correction of the problems and the sins of the father. So they're not paying for.
If you
It's
don't
not
mind,
like that. It's just that our obligation. My dad was a drunkard, a womanizer, a thief. No, he wasn't. I'm just saying this. We can say all these horrible things about our parents. The reason I'm this way is because my mom, she never loved me, and my dad never liked me. And we can come up with all excuses as to why we are what we are and why we do what we do.
And the mailman barked at me and chased me.
Exactly, and
it's interesting that you say that.
I'll finish with this, and you can go on. The point here is, instead of blaming all of my woes on my parents, they saw what their parents had done, and it's as though they're correcting that attitude. They're correcting that character flaw, and they're overcoming it. Instead of wallowing in self-pity, they're recognizing, oh, don't do it that way. Let's do it this way.
So could you say real quick that they are maturing to the point of taking responsibility instead of trying to shuck it?
In a roundabout way, that's sort of like what I was about to say, considering the fact that I also remembered hearing a statement come out of my father's mouth before the show started of, while yes, all of Torah can be summed up in the story of Jacob, you can also look back to the story of Abraham as well. I mean, not Abraham, of Cain and Abel as well. And I took a brief jump back there based on what was being said just now. In a roundabout way, they are not only making up, as you said, to the third and fourth generation. Oh my word, that brings a reference to what God has said in the past. Those who hate me, I will punish for the sins of the fathers to the third and fourth generation.
Right.
Which they're bringing about restitution, but also they're also bringing about restitution in another fashion. The Cain and Abel story of, am I my brother's keeper? They are flat out saying, yes, I am my brother's keeper. I will defend them against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Yeah,
Yep.
what started off that the dissension between Judah and Joseph of who's going to be the spiritual guide, who's going to be dad's favorite, who's going to run the family, who's closer to God, who's more accepting, who's going to be the spiritual leader, who's going to be the physical leader, and where did all that start from? It started with Cain and Abel, and we're seeing finally how many hundreds, thousands of years are we coming to? Oh my goodness, the the cosmic burrito that we call the Torah is so
That's like
secular,
to eat it.
secular. It goes over and over, but it's all based on the same thing. The story might change a little bit, but the heart of it still goes back to, I know God. Let me show you. Let me tell you where you're wrong. And then, God, I don't like the way you're handling things. No, I'm going to be in charge. You follow me. And we see this thing that started with Cain and Abel as it goes through the families all the way down, and it still follows in every family. Who is going to be in charge? Listen to me. I have something to say. I'm more important. I got a direct connection with God. Let me tell you how it's done.
Mm, mm. So, uh, then how would we sum up this portion? Is it just, as you said, it's a roundabout way of putting everything together, tying it up in a nice little bow? Uh, what what can we say?
Well, to sum up, that would be a little bit of a challenge considering we've covered two aspects of this double portion in today that could easily be used to sum up in either fashion. We have the fashion that the end of Numbers is the end of the long journey ever since Genesis, as we've just now portrayed with the whole Cain and Abel story. Or we can say that the end of this portion is a promise made so many years ago finally coming to an epic conclusion. This Torah portion does seem to round out the whole concepts of keeping to one's vows and completing one's vows in a sense, because you're not you the entire way that this portion plays out is very much reminiscent to many aspects in Torah that we've covered throughout this year and every subsequent year beforehand. And then next Torah portion, we jump straight into Deuteronomy, which is Moses' form of summing up, Moses' opinion or swan song, as it has been put, of summing up everything that we just now went through. It's the ending of an essay. Deuteronomy will be the ending of the essay. This is what I have explained to you, and this is my point of view from it all.
So next week's show we ought to call it 3.5 opinions because it's Moses and the rest of us.
If you want to, yeah. But yeah,
Ah,
to try to sum it up, it's the best way to complete a story is to bring everything full circle, whether it is a vow, a journey, a promise, an adventure, you name it. It is essentially bringing it back to the beginning. The
okay.
end becomes the beginning once more.
So when it fails, the scene goes back to the beginning.
Yeah.
But this one didn't fail.
And I have got to say this here is so much of what I learn about Torah and each Torah portion comes from so many different rabbis. Rabbi Foreman, thank him for this teaching. It was fascinating. He has a wonderful way of tying things together and making me question and make me dig and find out different things. There was Rabbi Freeman. Of Virtual Beit Midrash, which is a yeshiva Etzion, Wonderful teachings there. There's so many places. I encourage everyone look out and see what the rabbis are teaching about each Torah portion, because they go into a depth that is fascinating, and they're able to tie things together that just open your eyes to different perspectives of how deep this story truly is. And we keep on saying that Torah is that 70 faceted jewel, the diamond that's cut with 70 different faces on it, and each one just gives you a different perspective of the beauty and the light that shimmers from within. So these many rabbis that I study from and learn from, I have to thank them greatly, because they've enlightened me to see a holistic.
I thought you said mini rabbis.
Yeah,
Sorry.
not small rabbis. The
Yeah. No.
the great number of great men that have gone on before us and have learned so much and dedicated their lives to study. But that's it that I've got, Frank. How do you close this out? Because I think Jesse and I are done.
I don't think you can actually close it out until you finish all 5 books of the Torah, with number 6 on the way, because we might actually do Joshua. We'll see.
That would be fun at some point in time, because we see so many things that started out of our Torah that are coming to. It's almost as if, it's like how we treat Torah today. If you were that close to it, it's okay. This is what we learned over there. Now let's put it to application.
Right.
Now, how do we apply what we learned? We just graduated from school, from college, got my master's degree, whatever it may be. Now I'm on the job and actually doing it. That's what Joshua is all about. This is how you apply it.
Right. Okay. So I guess we're done. So one more time. Hazak, vinet hazek. Be strong, and be strengthened.
May you be strengthened.
So I guess we'll see you next week. Yes, no?
I am going to be traveling for the next couple of weeks.
Right.
Starting next weekend, I'll be gone for 2 or 3 weeks. I have to look at what those travels are like. But
if I am here, I will give warning in advance if I don't show up. So we can play. It'll be 2 of the 3 individuals, and if we only have one of us, I'm pretty sure we can still hold down the fort if we want to. If not, we'll warn everyone listening in advance that 2.5 opinions will be down.
We might just take a sabbatical.
We'll keep people in the loop on those specific days, because we're not just going to cancel it outright. We love this thing. And we hope you guys love it as well.
Well, we hope. We have at least Joe is listening to us. That's something, okay? And that's not a joke, Joe. I'm serious. That's something. So, all right. So I guess that's it from 2.5 opinions. Shavua Tov, Lila Tov, Lehithrot.
Yes, 2.5 opinions where our opinions outnumber our audience.
Yeah, we're gathered, our audience doubles, right? So, thank you very much. Please enjoy the rest of your Sabbath.
Mizmor, shir le'yom ha'shabos. Mizmor, shir le'yom ha'shabos. Mizmor, shir le'yom